Just when we thought that the Deion Sanders Colorado contract drama was over, he sent a message to the program that I think they should maybe pay attention to.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Nissan. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. The all-new 2025 Nissan Armada is here, so stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about it. We talked about it heavily when he was linked to the Dallas Cowboys, the Las Vegas Raiders, and all those NFL teams that were sort of emerging as possible landing spots for Coach Prime. And I think we forgot about it, right? It was like, okay, he didn't go anywhere, so let's just throw that discussion away and we'll never have it again, right? Wrong. Deion Sanders, and let me tell you, I think Colorado needs to make him, they don't need to make him the highest paid coach in college football, right? Because that's in that Kirby Smart range of $13 million. Dabo Sweeney's $11 million. Steve Sarkisian, he got a raise. He'll be around $11 million. I think Colorado should realistically have him at worst in the top 10. And if they're all in on him, then make him one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid coaches in college football, right? Because you are getting more than just results on the field. You are getting a surge in your economy. You are getting popularity that your program has never experienced before. And in a way, you're getting stability of your program's future, because when that next wave of conference realignment rolls around and starts knocking off certain programs from being like, hey, you're no longer in this mega conference, or like, hey, you're just not in our cool kids club of college football programs, there's no chance in hell that Deion Sanders is left out of that. So Deion Sanders brings a lot of value to Colorado, right? He's boosted the local economy by hundreds of millions of dollars. There's top recruits, there's top transfers. They all want to go there, but Colorado has not paid him. And back in January, Joel Klatt said, well, he's got a really good, or I think it was like very, very good deal on the table that he hasn't signed. And so there was some mysteriousness there. It was like, why hasn't he signed it? Is he looking for an NFL gig? Like, we didn't know what Deion Sanders was doing. And then all of a sudden we hear that maybe it's he wants to build around him. He wants more investment. It's like, that makes sense, right? And he hires Marshall Faulk. He brings back Robert Livingston as the highest paid coordinator in Colorado history. But clearly he's still not being compensated the way he wants to be. So I think this is something that most people thought was a dead sort of talking point. But he said this yesterday, I think it was yesterday. And I don't think enough people are paying attention to it. So let me highlight it. Let me highlight it for you. So he was on the morning run, which was with Neely. It was with Dukes of Scoops, Philip Dukes, excuse me, not Paul Dukes, Philip Dukes. And they were talking about, they sort of got in the conversation of Boulder, right? And they're talking about the great weather, blah, blah, blah. Coach Prime sort of crashes the interview, and it's a good old grand time, right? And it's like, okay, we're having fun. He's like, it's beautiful out here. We're going to practice outside tomorrow because the weather's so great. And then as he's leaving the screen, he goes, these people better go and get my money and stop playing. Bye-bye. And then I don't think everyone heard it. So Neely goes, did you guys hear what he said? And they were like, no, we didn't. And he said, this is him quoting Coach Prime. He goes, he said, quote, he said how great the weather was, right? And he goes, y'all heard that. He said, these folks better stop playing and give me my money. And then he walked off. So clearly Deion Sanders is still waiting for that extension, still waiting for that raise. And does he deserve one? Hell yes. I've talked about it, right? Let's just run through. I'll give you a few reasons as to why Deion Sanders needs to be one of the highest paid coaches in college football if you're Colorado, right? Because let's think of how difficult it was for you to get to this point. Dating back to 2000, Colorado has just 1, 2, 3, 4 now with Deion Sanders, 4 seasons of 9 or more wins. Dating back to 2016, that was the only time, or day back to 2016, they finished below 500 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 8 years. The other time they didn't was the COVID year when they went 4-2, right? And this is just Colorado. So they won a title a long time ago. It almost feels like a lifetime ago, 1990. I mean, I wasn't alive, where they win a national championship. They go 11-1-1. Then they go 8-3-1 and a couple other solid seasons in there. But as soon as the 2000 year rolls around, 3-8, 10-3, 9-5, 5-7, 8-5, 7-6, 2-10, 6-7, 5-7, 3-9, 5-7, 3-10, 1-11, 4-8, 2-10, 4-9, 10-4 was a good year. 5-7, 5-7, 5-7, 4-2, 4-8, 1-11, 4-8 in Deion's first year, and then obviously Coach Prime leaves him to a 9-4 record. So this program has been struggling for quite a while. He finds success, and he's asking for you to buy into him a little bit more, so that way he can continue to build up your program. And you're hesitant. Why? Right? You need to figure out a way to make Deion Sanders feel like he is being compensated or supported enough, right? And clearly Colorado's not doing this at this time. If you want to know how much Deion Sanders was making and compared to other coaches around him, this past season he ranked 38th in college football in terms of salary, made $5.7 million. And then I think he ended up making $250,000 in bonuses. So for winning X amount of games, making it to a bowl game, stuff like that. So he made a few more bucks here and there, but some notable names that he's behind. Mike Locksley at Maryland is making more money than him, and he's on the hot seat. Greg Schiano at Rutgers is making $6.25 million. Shane Beamer, he's due. I think he probably got a contract extension. Sam Pittman at Arkansas, almost $5 million. He's on the hot seat. Colorado's rival Matt Rule, Nebraska, $6.5 million. Brett Bielema, Illinois, just had a really good season, but $6.6 million. PJ Fleck, kind of on the hot seat, kind of not, always in that middle tier, 6.7. Hugh Freeze, same thing. Kirk Ferentz, $7 million. Like, there's so many names on this list where it's like Deion Sanders should be making more than them, even if they have more on the field success over the course of the years, because Deion Sanders has only been at Boulder or in Boulder for 2 years now. You have to pay for the value that he brings your program. And the value he brings to the program is not something that you're going to get from anyone else, right? I think that's the hard part, is we're sort of in this stage of like, oh, well, what did he do for us? Blah, blah, blah. Like, this is what Deion Sanders has done for the program. $113 million in the local and economic impact. 8 million viewers watch their bowl game, which was the most outside of the college football playoff. Wins between the 5 seasons before he was in Boulder, 19. He's already at 13 in the 2 seasons he's been here. They had Colorado, that is, had their highest AP ranking since 2016, and it's their second time that they finished ranked in the college football playoff. And it's also worth noting that it was their second highest college football playoff ranking. He's signed 3 of the program's top 6 highest ranked recruits. You got Jordan Seaton, Cormani McClain, Julian Lewis. Obviously, Cormani didn't work out, but you still bring him there, right? You still got him on campus. It just didn't work out there. He's doing better in Florida, though. I've heard he's gained 20 pounds of muscle, and he's running 23 miles per hour. So shout out to Cormani. But Julian Lewis, 5-star quarterback, highest ranked quarterback in program history. So all of this stuff is happening with Deion Sanders at the helm. And Colorado has decided, like, hey, maybe we'll wait and see, right? Or is there concerns about him leaving? I don't know, right? I think if there were any concerns about Coach Prime leaving, it would have been this offseason, right? The Dallas Cowboys job was open. The Raiders job was open. He didn't get either of them. Did he want either of them? I mean, that's, some people say he did. Some people say he didn't. But he's in Boulder still. Keep him in Boulder as long as possible, because the moment you lose him, you are going to go full rebuild mode, because I imagine I would say probably 70 to 80% of the players, that feels like a lot, but it probably is true, are going to leave the program. And then you're just going to be stuck there with, like, okay, who's going to want to take this job when it's probably the toughest job in college football to rebuild from the top or from the bottom up again. So Coach Prime clearly wants a new contract, whether it's to have more money in his own pockets, to be more compensated amongst his peers in the Big 12, or if it's to have a bigger spending pool for coaching staffs or NIL, whatever it is. He's clearly not getting it. So Colorado needs to figure out a way for him to get that money. Otherwise, things could go south. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of the bigger sort of things I noticed from spring ball day one. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Nissan. And let me tell you about Nissan because, you guys, it's the Nissan Team of the Week. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and all the new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut team of the week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shire's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Kupp, just ripped through the ACC going 19-1. The Blue Devils were plus 434 points in ACC games, the largest point differential by a power conference team in league play since Kentucky in 1953 and 1954. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done here. It's clear that our team of the week is out here and ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for making me your first listen of the day. Like I say all the time, we're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We're a couple away from 7,000. Would love to get there. Let's do it. Let's talk about spring ball because it's happening. And there's a couple things that I noticed, and there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about when people were talking. And so let's just dive into the one that stood out the most to me, which was Pat Shurmur's stance on the run game. And it feels obvious, right? It feels they sort of, I don't know. Like, we all knew this was the reason, didn't realize he'd say it out loud. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, he was talking about the running back room, which is now led by NFL legend Marshall Faulk. And he said, I think it's a really good group. They were underutilized to some degree last season. Some of it was by design, he said. And I'm not going to play the whole quote. I'll just give you the gist. He basically was like, hey, we have Shedeur Sanders. I like to throw the ball. It's fun when you have a really good quarterback. That being said, there were some RPO looks where the quarterback has the option to run the ball or hand the ball off, or throw it. And there were missed opportunities. So what did I learn from that? Well, clearly, Shedeur Sanders was a little throw happy. They didn't trust the run game. He didn't trust the run game. The staff didn't trust the run game, and they didn't make him trust the run game. So what do you get? Well, I mean, you end up with one of the worst rushing attacks in college football, and you're one-dimensional, right? It's a brutal spot to be in. But you look at what Colorado's run game looked like last year. Isaiah Gustav led the team with 85 carries for 384 yards and 4 touchdowns, right? 85 carries. For reference, we'll go to Ohio State. For a team like them, obviously, they made it further. We'll go to BYU. Big 12 team, Colorado sort of they were going up against them. BYU's third leading carrier had 68 carries, right? LJ Martin had 137. Jake Retzlaff had 100, the quarterback, that is. And then Hinckley, I believe is how you say it, Rapati, he had 68 carries. I mean, when your third string running back or second string running back is getting more carries than Colorado's number one running back, there's an issue, right? So that was something that stood out to me. So it sounds like they acknowledge they have to run the ball more. Shocker, right? I think it was when they didn't run the ball more than 14 times with a running back last year. They were 0-4, 0 in however many losses they had. I think it was all 4 games they did not do that. So tough scene there. Another thing that stood out to me was the reaction that we got from Julian Lewis. He's confident, right? I like the confidence he has. I think there's something to him where I don't know if he's going to play right away. That being said, like, they were asked if he has anything more to prove. He said, not particularly. I've got more to prove to myself than anybody else. I was getting called overrated since I was 7. Imagine calling a 7-year-old overrated. That's kind of crazy. Either way, it happens, I guess. So Julian Lewis is clearly confident. He's there. He knows what's at stake. He knows that, hey, Kaidon Salter, I'm going to have to beat him out. And Kaidon Salter said the same thing. He talked about which I thought this was interesting. A lot of people have been highlighting his legs. He said he came to Colorado to throw the ball. He's confident in his ability to throw the ball. He said he came to Colorado because he saw Shedeur have so much success through the passing attack, and he wants to experience that as well. He wants to show that, hey, I could beat teams with my arms, but despite having or being one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country. So those were I would say my biggest takeaways was the run game seems to be more of a focus this year, which I'll believe that when I see it. And then both the two quarterbacks it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting battle. It's going to be sort of I think it'll come down to the wire unless someone really separates themselves. I think Coach Prime is going to give everybody the chance to earn the opportunity. Ryan Staub even got to talk to the media today, which I think was a nice touch because Ryan Staub has sort of automatically been cast as like, oh, he's the forgotten guy. Like he was Shedeur's backup, but now he has let's just say now he has a real opportunity to contend for the starting role. So this is who spoke to the media today. It was both coordinators, Ryan Staub, Kaidon Salter, and Julian Lewis. So they let all three quarterbacks speak to the media. It shows me that Staub is going to get a fair look. And I mean, you bring in a 5-star, you bring in one of the top transfers. You don't expect a guy like Ryan Staub to beat him out, but hey, if he does, that just shows that he earned the job. So I look forward to that battle, to say the least. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the NFL draft and why I think some people are being a little bit dramatic about the Shedeur Sanders fall from grace. This episode of Locked On Buffs, it's brought to you by Roy. Attention Locked On Buffs fans. Ever wish you could directly support your favorite Colorado athletes and be a part of their journey? Now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors since fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing Colorado. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, and get exclusive content from the athletes you back. The best part, if your players transfer, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Shape your favorite players or support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of Colorado sports. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Colorado athletes the way they deserve with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk some NFL draft. I think Shedeur Sanders took a lot of heat at the combine. I think there's a lot of noise and rumors about him. It's like, oh my gosh, is he disrespecting teams? Blah, blah, blah. Is he not interested? Is he trying to force his way here or there? I think it comes down to, and people aren't going to like this, but guess what? If there's a prospect who sort of has this power or this ability to make something happen, it's him, it's Deion Sanders, and it's going to happen. Let me explain. There's a lot of rumors about Shedeur Sanders falling down draft boards. People are like Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, they could be QB2. We don't know, right? I think Shedeur Sanders is one. He's a victim of, someone wants him, so they're probably trying to talk down on him a little bit. So that way it's like, okay, we want to make sure that no one trades up for him. We want to make sure that this happens or this doesn't happen. Also, in a perfect world, right, Deion Sanders made it clear that there are certain teams he doesn't want Shedeur to go to. So the same thing about Travis Hunter. There's certain teams he doesn't want him to go to. So if you're telling me that you don't think the Sanders family has those teams picked out or the teams that they want him to go to picked out already, you're sadly mistaken. And I'm here to tell you that there's a good chance that it's been narrowed down to, say, 1 to 3 teams, if you will. And Shedeur's they're going to figure out a way for them to get to those 3 teams, right? There's certain teams in the NFL, certain franchises that have not been known to develop players. There's certain franchises who have not been known to develop quarterbacks. And Coach Prime doesn't want that to happen to, 1, his quarterback, more importantly, 2, his son. So clearly, I think there's going to be some behind the scenes operating, and I think people are expecting like these loud gestures, and it's not going to happen the way we think it is. That being said, it wouldn't surprise me if Shedeur Sanders, Coach Prime, Travis Hunter, maybe not Travis Hunter to as much of an extent because he's kind of got to go wherever he's told in a way. They have ideas. right? Don't let anyone confuse you. Don't let all this noise about Shedeur Sanders falling confuse you. If Shedeur Sanders falls in the NFL draft, I don't think it'll be a surprise to him, right? I think his people, his team, they have an idea of where he's going more than most prospects in this draft class. So Shedeur Sanders sort of has a slight advantage over everyone else, and I think the NFL draft will work out in his favor more so than people think. That's what I think. You guys let me know what you think. I will see you guys tomorrow. This has been another episode of Locked on Buffs.